Hi everyone! So this is my first English video on this channel. I'm not sure I will do more, but I thought this was the best way to share my story with my non-Portuguese speaking friends and family. You've probably heard me saying quite often how important it is for us to challenge ourselves, to step out of our comfort zone, because that's kind of the only way for us to grow and evolve, both as a soul and as a human being. So that's why I wanted to share my story with you. Maybe it will serve as some inspiration or even motivation for you to do something different as well, and for you to get the courage to step out of your comfort zone. So, the past weekend, the weekend from the 9th until the 11th of January, the last weekend, if you're watching this when I post it, I joined a program called Into the Wild. And it wasn't my intention to do a video about it. And I actually had decided to go offline of taking that chance to disconnect from my phone over that period of time. And my phone did stay in the tent for 48 hours, and it was pretty much switched off at all time. But then on Monday, after the weekend, on Monday morning, I felt that I should talk about it and about the challenge that I went through, that maybe they will somehow inspire some of you. So for quite a long time now, I've been having this desire of connecting more, or maybe reconnecting is the best word, with nature, because I did used to spend a lot of time in nature as a child. But as I grew older and then went off to university and then moved to the Algarve, that changed. So maybe reconnecting is actually the best word. But it also seems that our society is promoting the people to actually distancing themselves from nature, from that connection. And I started to feel the need of that reconnection a few years ago. As many of you will know, because that's where I met you, I lived in Scotland for 8 years, and that's where I really learned how to look at nature. I started to look into nature in a different way than I did when I was still in Portugal. I did several walks in the nearby countryside, but nothing that radical. Though Scotland has beautiful hiking and trekking areas, I just never got to do it because, again, there was the lack of time, the lack of company, the lack of equipment, the financial restrictions. There was always something. So when I heard about this program Into the Wild, and I'm not here to advertise it, but I felt that it was time that I took my chance. So I joined the program. And I went there with an open mind and with an open heart, very aware of my limitations. I knew that I wanted to do whatever it was possible to go beyond these limitations, but I also knew I had to be careful and take it easy if I wanted to continue, because I think that happens a lot. At least it did happen for me quite often in the past, because with that willingness and that wish of overcoming myself, to prove myself, and sometimes actually to prove others that I was capable of, I overdid stuff. It didn't end well, and I stopped trying, like going trekking and prepared for that's when I had my first ankle sprain, that very first one in Balloch, for my friends in Scotland. Yes, I was trying to do that Balloch trek, very naive of me, but I learned the hard way. So This weekend, I experienced 2 nights camping in the forest. There were an outdoor kitchen and a compost toilet, so there was some sort of comfort. It was not really into the wild, though I did use the natural toilet on several occasions because I wanted to enjoy the experience as much as possible. But I think that for me, the most difficult part was that those kind of rooms, like the kitchen, the toilet, and even the tent, the bedroom, they were quite distant from one another. It was very physically challenging for me because at one point there was no trail. The path was done over leaves, fallen branches, tree roots, soft soil, pine cones, you name it. So during my time in Scotland, oh, and I realized I hadn't spoken to you guys about my ankle sprain, so I'm going to speak that now. And yes, I do have some notes here, so I don't forget everything. But yeah, during my time in Scotland and in the space of 5 years, I have 3 very bad ankle sprains, which have affected my ankle strength. The first one was that one, I'm not sure if it's Balloch or Balmaha. It's a very steep trail in near Loch Lomond, so I'm sure some of you will know what I'm talking about. Um, and though I have been working on strengthening my ankles, and the ankles are much better, definitely. The forest soft soil was extremely challenging, and besides, it had some inclination which made it hard going uphill. But I did do it slowly and pausing once every time that I needed to pause. What else? So there were several group activities, and we were paired in them on a few times. And these activities allowed us to see that it is possible to have fun with basic stuff. One of the activities that we did in pairs was using a stick each of us had picked from the floor and to create 6 different games in which you could use those 2 sticks. And with that, creating the games, sharing with the others, and then trying the games ourselves, we spent nearly an entire morning doing that, and it was very funny. But this weekend for me was very challenging emotionally as well. It triggered a lot of stuff in me that I later realized I already had those triggers, but I didn't know the cause, the root of them. Now I feel that I do know, and now I can start to heal them, so that's a plus. One of the exercises involved going deeper into the woods. I started doing it, but as the soil was getting softer, more uneven, and there were even small branches that we had to go over, and my legs were already quite tired at that time of all the uphill and downhill and the stick games. I started to feel my ankles weren't strong enough for that to continue, so I decided to go back. And none of my colleagues knew exactly the reason why I wasn't feeling confident, but neither of them judged me or criticized me. Some of them actually asked me if I needed any of them to go back with me so I wouldn't be alone. In the meanwhile, the others started to arrive to the destination point, and as they saw we wouldn't be walking any further inside the forest, they called me to join them. And some even offered their hands and arms for support. And as you can tell, I still feel like crying talking about it because it is one of my triggers. When I started to think about it, I started to realize that throughout my life, And for many different reasons, I started to associate that asking for help or that accepting help always came with a heavy price, with a heavy cost. People would eventually charge for that favor, even when they were the ones offering the help. So I started to do things by myself or paying for the things that I couldn't do myself, which was hard because I always saw myself as someone who loves to help people and doesn't ask for anything in return for that. Because I do believe in the circulation of help. So it's like I help you, you help someone else, that someone else helps someone else. And eventually that help will circle back to me. So I'm sure this, what I'm sharing, will resonate with someone, and maybe this is the sign or the hope that you need to believe that things can and will get better. We just need to have the courage to do what we deep down know it's what we want to do, but we don't do for several reasons, like I mentioned before. We may be afraid, we may don't have time, may not have a company, or sometimes you may just have the lack of willingness, or sometimes it's even like the financial, we just cannot afford to. But as the saying goes, when there's a will, there's a way, especially if that will is in alignment with our soul's will. And if that's the case, I do believe that when we give the first step, doors that we hadn't seen before will start to open. So, we live in a world that promotes individualization, being apart, separated from one another, and even disconnection with nature. So sometimes we may be in nature, but we are not connecting with nature. And I believe that's part of the reason the mental health has worsened, like on a global scale. And also maybe one of the reasons we feel so unhappy about life, like we have so much, we have a lot, but we feel sad because it feels like deep down there's something missing. And also because I believe that if we can live in harmony with nature and be very independent, then we cannot be controlled by the powers that be, and maybe that's why those powers are promoting this separation. What I do know is that those 2 days in community, sharing stories by the fire, helping each other with tasks, accepting each other's differences, even though they were very challenging, they have filled my heart with love and joy. I still have 5 more weekends ahead, and I'm not planning on making more videos about it, but you never know. I wasn't planning doing this video either. And I know I will continue to have challenges and limitations, but everything going well. I really hope that I am able to be in every weekend until the end of the program. And who knows, maybe I can continue to do some camping with some of the people that I got to know there, even if it is in their backyards, as a couple of them have mentioned. And this reminds me of a not funny, but well, of a thing that happened back in Scotland. I remember one time a friend of mine was saying he was gonna go camping that night with some friends, which is okay. It is common for people in Scotland to camp, but so that didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was when he told me they were going to set up tents in a place 5 minutes away from their houses. So the important was not where they were camping. It was not important that they were far away. The important is that they were in contact with nature, having that fire, that brotherhood, that conversation, sharing stories and drinks by the fire. And of course, drinks, that's another matter. And alcohol is optional because there's nothing wrong with a cup of tea instead. But I remember the time thinking how awesome it was what they were doing and kind of wanted to do that as well, but I didn't have the tent, I didn't have anything. And it was quite cold in Scotland, to be honest. But well, it's January and I did went camping for 2 nights. So I guess I was making excuses. But I also didn't feel comfortable because I knew my friend, but I didn't knew the other guys he was going with. So I guess I just didn't feel comfortable with that. So maybe it's another thing that society puts on us, is that fear that something will happen while we are in the woods. So maybe now it's my opportunity, my time to start to do that, because kind of always wanted to do. Just there was always reasons not to. And as I said before, I know it won't be easy, but it all starts with that first step, which I have already taken. So I received this opportunity with open arms, with open mind, and with an open heart. I also hope my story is helpful to you in some way. And maybe this is the sign that you were waiting to start doing something you've been wanting to do for a long, long time. So from my heart to yours, I'm sending you a lot of love. And until next time, bye-bye.